The story is about a woman named Maya, who is 28 years old. She's currently renting an affordable house with a very familiar architecture. In front of the house is a yard with a fence, followed by a living room. The kitchen is located at the intersection of the living room, and there's a wooden staircase leading to the second floor between the two rooms. The wooden staircase is old and creaks whenever someone walks up or down. The house has a small backyard, but Maya has never been there because the iron gate at the back is rusty and very difficult to open. It takes a lot of effort to turn the doorknob. Usually, Maya works very late, straining her eyes, and drinks a little alcohol to fall asleep easily. The reason is that this house has very strange problems. When Maya first moved in, she didn't have a part-time job, so she went to bed around 10 p.m. She still remembers the first night she slept in this house. As she started to fall asleep, Maya felt like someone was walking around her room. There were creaking sounds around the bed that were really creepy. That night, Maya was too scared to move. Even when she was thirsty, she didn't dare to go downstairs to get some water. She just lay under the blanket and tried to sleep. Maya lay still and endured until almost dawn, when all the sounds disappeared. Since that day, Maya decided to find more work to tire herself out or drink a little alcohol to be able to fall asleep easily. Maya wanted to move, but because the rent was cheap, she had to try to stay in this strange house. One day, Maya took care of a young relative named Tile, who was 10 years old. Tile's parents had to go on a business trip, so they asked Maya to look after him for a few days. Since Tile came to live here, the house has become much livelier. He often invites the neighborhood kids to play in the front yard. The children have broken the gloomy and scary atmosphere of the house. However, there's something strange when the kids play together. One kid would fall and break their arm, another would trip and sprain their ankle, and another would bump their head. Maya thought it was because the front yard was uneven, with some parts higher and some lower. It would be easy to trip and fall if you weren't careful. Maya herself had fallen once before. Today, Maya brought home a bag of cement to fill in the uneven parts of the yard so the kids could play safely. Maya told Tile to take a break from playing today and wait until the cement was dry before continuing. Tile was obedient and listened to her. Today, Tile played with his toys inside the house alone, while Maya was preparing dinner in the kitchen. Suddenly, Maya thought she heard someone calling her. It was a faint, chilling voice. She looked out the door, but didn't see anyone, so she thought she must have heard wrong. Someone was calling again. The voice was soft, but audible. Someone was calling Maya. She shivered as the voice seemed to be getting closer. It sounded like it was coming from the back door. Maya tried her best to open the door, but couldn't. The rusty doorknob was very stiff. Afraid of being teased by the neighbors, she shouted a threat. "I'm not joking around. If you keep this up, I'll call the police." The calling stopped. Maya brought the dinner tray to the living room to eat with Tile. She found him sitting outside the door, playing alone. She called Tile to come eat, but he didn't respond. He just sat there, staring at the door and mumbling something, as if he was talking to someone. Maya went out and saw that Tile was drawing on the wet cement with a stick. He had drawn a face of a woman with long hair and distorted features. Maya scolded Tile, and he cried, but obediently followed her instructions. Maya took a cloth to wipe off the ugly face on the wet cement. As night fell, Maya was sitting in the house, sewing clothes for her customers. Suddenly, she heard the sound of marbles rolling as Tile played alone with them. He kept rolling the marbles under the cabinets. Tile would lie down and stare into the dark spaces under the cabinets, saying that some marbles were stuck inside. Maya wanted to help Tile get the marbles, so she also lay down and reached her hand under the cabinet. Suddenly, someone's hand grabbed her hand from inside. It was dry, cold, and rough. Startled, Maya pulled her hand back immediately. She turned on her flashlight and shone it inside, but she couldn't see anything. She gathered all the marbles and put them in a jar, placing it on the shelf. Then Maya quickly carried Tile up to the bedroom. She thought that they would have to go to bed early tonight since Tile was home, and she couldn't drink alcohol like she used to. In the middle of the night, Tile was fast asleep, but Maya couldn't sleep. Whenever she closed her eyes, she could hear a faint sound of someone banging on the back door. The banging started softly and then grew louder. Then, she heard the jar of marbles that Tile had dropped to the floor. Scared, Maya hugged Tile tightly and tried to close her eyes to sleep. She stayed like that until dawn. When she went downstairs, Maya saw marbles scattered all over the floor. She noticed that the window wasn't closed and thought that maybe a cat or a mouse had climbed over the fence and knocked over the jar of marbles. She cleaned up the mess and took a broom to sweep the yard, checking if the cement was dry. As she swept, she saw the drawing of the woman's face again, exactly where Tile had drawn it yesterday. She felt strange and helpless because the cement was already dry and she couldn't fix it. Tile also seemed different today. He was lethargic, as if he was about to get sick. Maya scooped some rice for him, but he refused to eat. She decided to go out and buy some fever medicine for Tile. When she returned home, she found Tile sitting in front of the door, staring at the bowl of rice in the middle of the yard. Maya asked why he left the food on the ground, but he simply said that he heard a woman's voice saying she was very hungry and wanted to eat. Maya asked which woman, and Tile pointed to the drawing of the woman's face on the cement. Maya scolded Tile for talking nonsense and brought him inside. Tile was already feverish and was talking deliriously. Maya quickly gave Tile the medicine and put a wet towel on his forehead to lower his temperature. Tile lay there, half asleep, and said that the lady at the door was hungry and would cause trouble if she wasn't fed. As soon as Tile finished speaking, Maya heard the shattering of a bowl outside. She rushed out to find Tile's lunch bowl smashed on the ground, food scattered everywhere. She had no idea what had happened. Maya grabbed a broom and began to sweep up the mess. Suddenly, she gasped. A drawing on the ground had been indented, forming a hole right where the old woman's mouth was. The rice was filling the hole, as if the face were actually eating. Terrified, Maya ran back inside, not daring to go outside. She tried to calm Tile down, but she was also trying to calm herself. She looked for things to do to take her mind off it. By noon, Maya was so tired she fell asleep with Tile in her arms. In her dreams, she heard a rattling cough, cold and chilling, like the sound of a very sick person. Maya opened her eyes, but the sound was gone. An unnatural silence filled the room, then everything seemed to come alive. The creaking of the wooden stairs, heavy footsteps upstairs, pounding on the back door. Everything was becoming chaotic. Fearful, Maya screamed. Everything stopped suddenly. Tile was covered head to toe in a blanket. He was moaning and groaning as if he were too hot. Maya pulled the blanket off Tile, and a horrifying sight met her eyes. It wasn't Tile under the blanket. It was a corpse, cut into pieces, with limbs about to fall off. The body was purple and covered in maggots. It opened its eyes and yawned.
Feed me, feed me.
Maya woke up with a start. It was 6 p.m. Tile was no longer beside her. She heard giggling outside. She ran to the balcony and looked down. Tile was talking to a woman's head, purple and bloody, lying in the middle of the yard. right where she had drawn it. Maya screamed and ran downstairs to hug Tile, not knowing where to go. The little boy said, "She said we have to make an altar for her in the house or she caused trouble." Maya had known something was wrong with this house, but because of her circumstances, she had tried to stay. Now, things had gotten out of hand. She decided to ask the neighbors for information. They were all hesitant to talk. Only an old woman in the neighborhood was willing to share. She said that a long time ago, a couple had lived in the house. They had a domestic dispute, and the husband had killed his wife and dismembered her body. The husband was arrested shortly after and confessed to dumping his wife's body in the river. The police only recovered the torso. Hearing this, Maya felt her legs give way. She recalled her dream of the woman's head. Could she have died unjustly and returned as a ghost to seek vengeance? The previous tenants had all moved out, unable to bear living there. Maya was the only one who had stayed for so long. Thinking about the drawing of the woman's face on the cement in the yard, Maya seemed to have a hunch. She hired a construction worker to dig up the yard. As they dug deeper and deeper through layers of cement, they were horrified to discover a woman's skull beneath, her hair matted and covered in maggots. Maya also had someone break down the back door, revealing a small yard overgrown with weeds. Standing in the middle of the backyard and looking at the door, she noticed numerous footprints on the threshold, as if someone had been stepping on it for days. She had the backyard dug up too, and just as she had suspected, they found two legs buried there. Tao cried, his voice like a woman. He didn't say anything, just pointed at the wall. Immediately, Maya had people dig along the sides of the house, and they discovered the woman's two arms buried there. The husband had dismembered his wife's body, dumping the torso in the river and burying the head, hands, and feet around the house to hide the evidence. After reporting the incident to the police, they gathered all the remains and gave the woman a proper burial. Maya was terrified to realize that she had been living with dismembered body parts in the house for so long. After everything was resolved, the people in the neighborhood admired Maya's courage and resilience. About Maya, she no longer saw anything strange in the house. The host even favored her and provided her with the conditions to settle down there because no one else dared to live in that house. Our story ends here. See you all in the next story on the Yuka NGO Storyteller channel. Please like and subscribe my channel for more video in future. Thank you.